With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
This is GoPowercat.com publisher Tim Fitzgerald. Thank you for listening to this Powercat podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode of the Powercat podcast by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, or your favorite podcast network. And if you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a subscriber to GoPowercat.com. We cover the Wildcats like no one else, with our VIP customers enjoying one-of-a-kind coverage from our team of professional journalists. And sign up today for an annual subscription to GPC and grab a 30% discount on your first year. And now here's the Powercat Podcast.
The following is a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to GoPowercat.com's Powercat Pregame Podcast, presented by Robbins Motor Company, and it starts right now. Now, let's go to the WTC Gig-Powered Studios. Here's your host, GoPowercat.com publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Following an impressive 31-24 comeback victory at number 23 Mississippi State and a bye week, the nationally ranked Kansas State Wildcats begin their Big 12 slate on Saturday at Oklahoma State. Welcome to the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company. I'm GoPowercat publisher Tim Fitzgerald. K-State fans, visit the Robbins Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat location on Anderson Avenue in Manhattan for an exciting test drive. Robbins Motor Company, title sponsor of the Powercat Pregame Podcast. Saturday's game in Stillwater will kick at 6 p.m. and be shown on Big 12 Now on ESPN+. The game can be heard across the 39-station K-State Sports Network with Wyatt Thompson on play-by-play, former K-State quarterback Stan Weber as analyst, and our buddy Matt Walters doing the sidelines and also doing the pre- and post-game shows on the network. K-State opened the Chris Klieman era with 3 impressive victories as the Wildcats defeated Nichols and Bowling Green by a combined score of 100-14, and then followed that with a win at number 23 Mississippi State. The victory at MSU marked the first time in program history that K-State won a road game against an SEC team that was in the league at the time of the contest. K-State had previously lost 11 times in such games. The Wildcats went from receiving no votes in either the coaches or Associated Press polls 2 weeks ago to ranking number 22 in the coaches poll and 24th in this week's Associated Press top 25. Kansas State is 3-0 on the season, and Oklahoma State, coming off its 36-30 Big 12 opening loss in Austin, Texas, is 3-1 and 0-1 in Big 12 play. And now it is time to go in depth with this preview of the Wildcats and Cowboys with the GoPowercat roundtable session. And I'm now joined by GPC football beat writer and associate editor D. Scott Fritchen, senior writer Riley Gates, and our football recruiting analyst Ryan Wallace. Let's start with you, Ryan Wallace. What do you fear the most from this Oklahoma State offense?
Do I have to say just one thing?
No, that's the problem.
Yeah, they're just a really balanced team. You know, it's not like those old Texas Tech teams of the past, with Mike Leach that pretty much just get by with throwing. I mean, this is more Art Briles-like, the way that he used to run Baylor. What Mike Gundy has done is he's added a running back in Hubbard that can beat you with his legs, and then the minute you try and stop the run, they're just going to beat you over the top with guys like Tylan Wallace and Dylan Stoner. I mean, they're very good, but I think, if I had to say like a sneaky part about this Oklahoma State team in general, but specifically on offense that is a little bit scary, is the fact that not only do they run that high-octane offense that Kansas State really hasn't seen this year under Chris Klieman, but they're also fairly experienced. I mean, you take away Spencer Sanders, the freshman at quarterback, and they've got a lot of guys that, even though they might be juniors or sophomores, they're guys that have played some snaps for this team. So there's not going to be that kind of deer in headlights where they're still kind of figuring some things out and, we're coming off a loss and da-da-da. This Oklahoma State offense, to me, is just it's a scary good offense in the Big 12.
Same question to you, Riley Gates.
I mean, I think that kind of covered a lot of it for me. I do fear the passing attack a lot because we still have a little bit of questions left to answer about K-State's secondary. But for me, it's kind of that couples a little bit with the fact that Spencer Sanders can just get out and run. We haven't seen K-State face a quarterback of this type of talent yet where he can, he can throw it really well. Obviously has a lot of options, like Ryan mentioned right there, but it's another added dimension when you can take off and run and not just run to get to the sticks, here's the first down. He can run and he can go well past that first down marker, and that kind of scares me because it's just one more thing you have to worry about. Yes, K-State can look at shutting down Chuba Hubbard in the running game. Yes, K-State could look to play some really tight defense on Tylan Wallace. But it's just so tough to try to stop three things at once, and the quarterback run makes that tough.
I suspect, D. Scott Fritchen, I know your answer. Is it the redshirt freshman quarterback Spencer Sanders?
I spent some time with Mike Tuiasosopo, the defensive tackles coach at Kansas State, on Wednesday, and he's been around for 28 years. He's a coaching veteran. He's about seen it all. And I said, who do you compare this guy, Spencer Sanders, to? And he said, Marcus Mariota over at Oregon, Alex Smith at Utah, throwing out these names. And I said, well, I wish you luck. And he said, thanks, we're going to need it.
I look at him and I see a young El Roberson. It's all there. He just hasn't put it all together. And you just live in fear that he's going to put it all together on your watch. When, your team's there, he's going to turn into that running, throwing Lamar Jackson-like player that you just can't stop. This offense is really, really scary. But the good news for K-State is even if you expect Oklahoma State to put up points, you're probably going to put up points too, Wally. I mean, let's start with Skylar Thompson. He's had luck at Oklahoma State. He's had success down there in a career that's been kind of a mixed bag until this season. He should be going into this game with incredible confidence.
Yeah, I mean, he should. I mean, this was an Oklahoma State team that Kansas State had some success against in Manhattan last year. They brought in a new defensive coordinator last year, Jim Knowles from Duke, that just still seems like he's trying to kind of figure out how to best use all of his parts. They're kind of reinventing the defensive line up front. They lost some guys, even though they had a bunch of sacks and tackles for loss last year. They're having to replace a bunch of guys. They've got some active linebackers and some young guys in the secondary. But again, if you're Kansas State, you're seeing a lot of things on paper that really can work to your advantage. Like I said up front, this is a nice game for K-State's offensive line to really flex their muscles like they have the first three games of the season. And I think it's a nice test, right out of the gate for Kansas State's receiving core. Nothing that, nobody that really stands out and scares you. I think A.J. Green and Rodarius Williams are solid corners in this league, but guys that I think are good for Malik Knowles and Dalton Schoen to get their feet wet against before you kind of dive into, some of the more well-known corners that they're going to see down the road.
We'll get into the running game in a little bit, Fritch. I believe that K-State is going to run with a great deal of purpose and be very convicted to it. They're going to want to run the ball a lot. But there's going to come a time in this game where Skylar Thompson needs to make a throw or two or three. I think he's ready to do that. And I just think he's got a lot of confidence heading into this and truly believes in this offensive system.
Yeah. They run the ball, but then Skylar's able to go over the top, and he's got playmakers, like you said, with Malik Knowles and Dalton Schoen. He has that confidence. He has the it factor this year that we weren't able to see in Skylar Thompson last year just because he was so afraid of making a mistake. This year, he's capitalizing. He's able to make the plays in the air.
We've seen just a shadow of this offense, just a fraction of this offense so far this season, Riley. Who will be the offensive reception go-to guy in this game?
That's a good question, Fitz. I think
that's what I do for a living.
I think that it'd be really easy to look at Malik Knowles and hope that it would be him. He had obviously the big game against Bowling Green. I thought, they tried to make him a little bit of a focal point at Mississippi State. It feels to me like a game, though, where you might need to lean on a guy like Dalton Schoen. And that a lot of that's because we haven't seen K-State do that yet. I say that just a few weeks after he caught a game-winning touchdown pass, so maybe that sentence doesn't exactly come off right. But Dalton Schoen has been far from what I expected him to be in terms of how often he was targeted, how much he was utilized, and early on we saw him drop some balls, and I think that probably played into that a little bit. But Malik Knowles is a kid that is a kid. I mean, he's played 4 games last year. He's played 3 this year. Yes, he understands it a little bit, but he has not played a full 12-game season. He's not, been a main receiver in an offense in a road Big 12 game, and Dalton Schoen's been there before. He's done that, and I think we could see K-State go to him a lot because I think Skylar Thompson's going to need a consistent receiver he can throw to in this one.
I'm going to say it won't be a typical pass catcher in terms of being a receiver. It's going to be a tight end or running back. I get this strange feeling Jordan Brown is going to be...
One of these games they're going to have to start pulling things out. Whether it's the tight end pass, whether it's the running back pass, these are things that were hyped up all offseason that the coaches said, oh, yeah, we got stuff in the playbook. Well, one of these days they're going to need to start pulling them out for us to start believing them.
A kingdom for a wheel route. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Fitz, I'm on board with you with Jordan Brown. That's who I was thinking in this one because I think, when you look at Oklahoma State, they generate so much of their pass rush from, their active linebackers, and a name that you're going to hear a lot is Eamon Ogbongbemiga. And don't ask me to spell it because I can't.
I could probably spell it, but I can't say it.
But, he's a kid that they like to bring on the pass rush, and Malcolm Rodriguez is a really athletic linebacker too, but they generate a lot of their pass rush from those guys this year, whereas in the past it was from the defensive line, and it just seems like a perfect Saturday for Jordan Brown to get out in the flat or on a wheel route and just say, see you later.
I'm with you guys. I think this is the game where they start peeling back that onion a little bit farther. They've done just enough peeling to make defenses cry, but now they're going to kind of get used to what they've run so far, and I think they break some of their tendencies they've shown in the first 3 games and throw some stuff at Oklahoma State that they really haven't shown. And Wally, to let you continue, I think a big reason they're going to do that is when you look at the schedule, this game, winning this game could be enormous. So why not throw it at the wall and see if you can make it all stick?
Yeah, I mean, it comes at a perfect time because you're coming off a bye against Mississippi State. You have all that, the hype from getting an SEC win on the road. I think Chris Klieman's able to settle that down, come back, kind of reinvent some things if they need to. Obviously, they probably shouldn't, but, if there's anything, like you said, that they want to test out, they kind of have 2 weeks to flex it around and see what works. You got a road game at Oklahoma State, then you come home against Baylor, and then you get another bye week where you can kind of reflect on, okay, what worked these last 2 weeks that we threw at Baylor and Oklahoma State, what didn't. So I agree with you 100%. I think this week and next week against Baylor are a big opportunity for Courtney Messingham, heck, even Scotty Hazelton to, if the timing is right, to open up the playbook a little bit, try some things out, and see what sticks for later down the road.
And D. Scott, whether they've shown those plays not yet or they're going to show them for the first time Saturday in Stillwater, it's really about the running game. That's what this offense is based on, and getting off to a fast start in the season was essential, and in this game is also essential.
I spent a little bit of time with James Gilbert, the sensational senior running back at K-State, graduate transfer from Ball State, in order to identify this mentality of this running game. This is what he said. He said, no team has seen the type of offense that we have at K-State. It's going to be a rude awakening come Saturday for them. K-State right now, 280 yards per game, which is 7th in the FBS. 348 rushing yards after 3 games. Fitz is the best that K-State's had after the first 3 games of a season in 70 years. Not bad for a running back position that returned 0 snaps from a year ago. Right now, K-State's averaging 5.6 yards per carry in 2019 versus 4.2 yards per carry this time in 2018. I'm so impressed with this running game, and of course it all starts up front with that very veteran offensive line, and man, much credit, to Courtney Messingham and all the coaches.
Yeah, it's the offensive line just dominated Mississippi State, and that Mississippi State front is better than Oklahoma State's front. I'm not going to be too nice here. I think Riley Gates, Oklahoma State's front is junk. They got bullied by Texas. I'm surprised Texas didn't move the ball at will on the ground. It's like Texas almost outthought themselves at times, but I feel like this is an opportunity K-State can really uncork some ball possession, yet big plays on the ground.
Well, you say the defensive front. I say the defense as a whole.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking at the season overall, they've given up 30 or more points twice of their 4 games. They're averaging, allowing opponents over 400 yards a game. It just says to me that it's not, we kind of said it earlier, it's not quite Texas Tech. They do put up a little bit of a fight on defense, or at least those old Texas Tech teams, I should say. But this doesn't strike me as a team that wants to get stops, that wants to make sure, hey, we're going to get out there and we're really going to get up in their face defensively. It's, hey, if they score, that's fine. We've got the offensive weapons to go back and score on the other way. So I really think K-State could get after this defense, because we've seen K-State come out and do the traditional K-State thing. 11 plays, 12-play drives, 75 yards in about 6-7 minutes, and really just kind of wear defenses down. And it really feels to me like if they do this against Oklahoma State, that'd be an amazing way to really rattle a defense that's not used to putting up big, long fights like that.
Ryan Wallace, there was a euphoria after winning at Mississippi State for the team, for the fan base, for the coaches. My dogs were excited. I don't think they knew what happened. But after an off week, it doesn't feel like that's diminished at all. In fact, the magnitude of that game as the team heads into conference play seems to still be holding up. It was a huge win, and the off week almost made it feel bigger because now you've had that to rest on, to prepare after, and feel like you have momentum. Do you share that thought, or do you think it's just, hey, that's in the past, or it's now 0-0 in Big 12 play?
No, I think it was a significant win. For emotionally speaking, given what Mississippi State did to Kansas State last year, that was a game that they really, really wanted to win. But not only just win, really make a statement. And I think they did for the most part. But at the same time, you really hope that, a bye week has calmed that down a little bit, because, I don't mean to toot Oklahoma State's horn here, because first off, I think it will be a close game, because every game in Stillwater is a nail-biter. Mm-hmm. I was going back through the stats the other day, and the average margin of victory over the last 4 meetings between these two teams in Stillwater is 4.5. The largest anyone has won since 2011 is 7 points. So that in and of itself means that, you can't come into this game riding too high, because Oklahoma State is always one of the more physical teams in the conference, and they're always going to be a competitive team, pretty much regardless of the game, at least when they're in Stillwater and Boone Pickens Stadium. But, the other thing that I kind of am a little nervous about heading into this game, besides, again, this, riding too high, waving your flag a little bit too much after the Mississippi State game, is the fact that this is still an Oklahoma State offense that scares me, given what Kansas State did a little bit at Mississippi State. The end of the second quarter, or, going into halftime, they give up that late touchdown. The third quarter, they let Garrett Schrader come in and start to do some things. They let a 17-7 lead diminish into a 24-17 Mississippi State lead. And so this is an offense to me that I'm a little nervous about K-State's defense with, from a standpoint of missed tackles and some miscues. This offense absolutely and Kansas State has to stay on the field, like you said, Fitz. But to round out a long-winded answer, yeah, I think it was good for the emotion of this team to get it done in Starkville, come back, ride high, be confident going into Stillwater, because it's a place that's challenged K-State in the past. But again, don't wave your flag too high, because this is an Oklahoma State team that just went down to Austin, and for all the flaws that they have, still put up 494 yards of total offense.
Yeah, they did. They probably should have won that game. They had opportunities. I'll be intrigued to see if Mike Gundy kicks the damn field goals this time, or he continues to go for it and fail to get points if that's what happens. I think that'll be a big storyline in this game to watch early on. Fritch, how big was that Mississippi State win, and how much did it help this program?
Well, we've talked before, it's that springboard that has been lacking for K-State teams in recent years. We thought Vanderbilt might be a stepping stone game for K-State, and they went out and lost. This team has what I think is that it factor about it. It reminded me so much of that Miami game in 2011, just the way that K-State was able to out-duel a Power 5 opponent on the road. Big win. Chris Klieman is the first coach in K-State history to have a team ranked in his first season. And now things become bigger.
Yeah, they do.
And it's a good, for you to say this Mississippi State game was a stepping stone is a testament to the staff so early on in their tenure to be able to get this team to this level where now they move on to the big boys, and now it becomes really fun.
Yeah, that Vanderbilt game, it was a stepping stone, but they missed the stone and fell in the water.
It fell backwards down the staircase.
Wow, yeah, it just didn't go right. I'm just really intrigued to see. Ryan, you brought up this point. I mean, the mistakes K-State made in that Mississippi State game added up to falling behind 24-17. You do that in Stillwater, it's 38-17. They will cash it in quicker and get the ball back and cash it in again. Riley Gates, they got to play a clean game, man. They can't go down into Stillwater and muff punts and turn over the ball and, have interceptions and fumble it right back and have late hit penalties. Silly errors kept them in a competitive game in Starkville. That will cost them a game in Stillwater.
Absolutely, it will. And I'm not concerned so much about the punt and return muffs as obviously that's kind of the big talking point right now, given how much of an issue it was in that Mississippi State game. For me, it is, what does K-State need to continue to do well is avoid those really stupid penalties that teams can make at times that beat them. That K-State is doing a very good job this year of not having bad false starts, not really getting tons of delays of games, things like that. For the most part, K-State's been a clean team. There's been some bad calls here, or bad calls that K-State has deserved to have called against them, the late hits, whatever the call might be. But for the most part, I feel like they've been clean. Now, it's going to be different in this environment. Now, Mississippi State was a tough environment to play in, but it also was a half-empty stadium at 11 a.m. This is going to be a jam-packed full Boone Pickens Stadium at night, paddles beating on the wall. I mean, it's going to be a heck of an environment to play in, and I think it's going to be tough for K-State at times to maybe stay composed. They've got to make that a key coming into this game. No false starts, no late hits. It's going to be, we've said it a lot, it's going to be physical. They're going to have tempers flaring a little bit, I'm sure. They got to avoid things like that. If there's a penalty, make it, like Chris Klieman always says, an aggressive holding call. Those are fine. But you just cannot have those penalties that are going to beat you, because I feel like this is a game where every single opportunity is going to be important.
Wally, we don't know about Scotty Hazelton's defense in terms of the Big 12. They've gone against bad offense, one-dimensional offense. You get a full throttle, you said it, Art Briles style spread with a really good running game out of Oklahoma State, and to use the cliche, it's pick your poison. And I think we're going to find out an awful lot about his character and dynamic nature as a defensive coordinator if he can find a way to stunt all the different blows that are going to be thrown at his defense on Saturday.
Yeah, and in addition to what you said, an underlying storyline to this weekend's game is, K-State got the better of Mississippi State with the help of former Mississippi State assistant Van Malone. Now, this week, Kansas State goes against former Kansas State assistant coach Charlie Dickey, who knows all the ins and outs of Kansas State's defense, maybe not from a strategy standpoint, now that the coaching staff has been revamped under Chris Klieman, but he certainly knows all the characteristics, all the traits, the nicks and knacks that make Wyatt Hubert good, that make Reggie Walker good, that make Trey Deshawn good, and you go on and on and on down the line. So, if you don't think that Mike Gundy is going to be picking his brain, you're sadly mistaken. And so that only adds to the challenge that Scotty Hazelton is going to face this week. He's had an extra week to really prep for this. But, going against Oklahoma State's offense right out of the gate, it can be a blessing because you get them out of the way. But it can also be, a nightmare because, again, you have them right out of the gate, and they're one of the most difficult offenses to prepare and defend for no matter when you see them.
Yeah, I wrote about that Charlie Dickey storyline coming into this one, and it was more from the side of the offensive line, but I think it applies on both sides of it. And the funny thing is, you ask Chris Klieman, and Mike Gundy was actually asked about it too, what can Charlie Dickey bring to the table in this game? And I think both coaches kind of tried to downplay it a lot. But it's absolutely going to be there. Mike Gundy just flat out said it doesn't add anything to it. Well, that's just I don't want to call a coach a liar, but I also feel like that's not entirely accurate. I absolutely think he's picked the brain of Charlie Dickey. Hey, which offensive linemen struggle with this? Which defensive linemen can we do this against? And Charlie Dickey's going to know those answers. So that's a bigger storyline to follow than I think is being talked about right now. Not that many people have brought it up, not that many people have asked about it. But it's certainly something I've got my eye on this weekend.
Well, let's bring this edition of the Roundtable to a close with a simple question for D. Scott Fritchen. How does that helicopter play at Mississippi State define this Kansas State defense?
Boy, 4th and 16, who would have thought that would happen? And, once again, it reminds me of that Miami game in 2011, Trey Walker goal line. Wally, you've talked about it before. And K-State's able to put the brakes on. Well, what we were able to see with A.J. Parker and Elijah Sullivan was they were able to put the brakes on. They did what it took. And A.J. Parker, after the game, told me that's just the mentality they play with. They play with a dog mentality. That's what they pride themselves on, and it's really going to be interesting to see what this defense is able to do going forward because it's top 20 in scoring defense. It's top 20 in total defense. In the last 10 years in the Big 12, only 6 defenses have finished top 40 in the league, which is pretty amazing.
That really is.
It's going to be really interesting to see if this defense, how well it's able to dig in and if it's able to sustain its aggressive ways throughout the Big 12.
And with that, the round table is closed. And now let's run off to the great state of Oklahoma and bring in former Oklahoma State offensive lineman Sam Mays. And he's heard every day across Oklahoma on the franchise from 3 to 7 p.m. Sam, appreciate you joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing great. It's it's fall weather, cooling off a little bit out in the Harley, getting around Oklahoma City. So
nice,
having a good time.
Nice. What is the aftermath of that loss at Texas for these Cowboys?
That's a great question. I think you're talking about a football team that is probably still in a position where they've overachieved this season. I think you're looking at a Spencer Sanders, who's one of the hot young quarterbacks in all of college football. Somebody who I think has got a skill set that, if cultivated correctly, could be in the Heisman Trophy conversation in 2 years. So, I don't know that Texas loss is something that is catastrophic to Oklahoma State or to Mike Gundy at this point. It's frustrating. I think that Texas is probably the better football team physically, but I thought Oklahoma State had many opportunities to win that game, and they just didn't take advantage of them on the coaching standpoint, and obviously the players made some mistakes too. So I don't know that it has really any real impact as far as what the season could be. I feel like the Cowboys probably still will finish a little bit better than I thought they would.
Well, Oklahoma State has probably, in my book, the best trio of playmakers on that offensive side of the football in the conference. And you mentioned Spencer Sanders, the redshirt freshman quarterback. Man, he's special. After covering Kansas State for so many years and looking at quarterbacks that Bill Snyder wanted to have in his system, boy, would he have fit in that old school Bill Snyder system with his ability to run and throw like he did with, Michael Bishop and L. Roberson and those guys. What jumps out to me is he's completing almost 63% 58% of his passes. He's at 328 on the ground, 2 TDs, and 62 and 93 through the air for 7 TDs. I'm telling you what, Spencer Sanders is a really, really special quarterback, because as soon as you lock in on the run with him, he's going to throw it. When you back up for the throw, he's going to run it, and he's a Rubik's Cube that's hard to solve, isn't he? Yeah, there's no question. I think that you saw some things out of him on Saturday against Texas that were much older veteran player decisions that he was making. There were some times where I thought you should have just ran that ball instead of trying to throw it, but you appreciate the fact that he's looking downfield, looking to make big plays, knowing, that he's got one of the more aggressive, skill-setted receiving cores in all of college football. Like, they've got someone that does something unique in every one of those positions at receiving core, and he wants to get them the football. Yeah. I appreciate that level of decision-making from an 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid. Like, he's come a long ways in a very short amount of time. You really wonder, if Spencer Sanders is not the future of the NFL when you consider the guys that are having success right now. Mobility is a must, and this kid, not only is he mobile, but he runs the football like a running back. Yeah, it's really fun. He's fun to watch, man. And when he throws the ball, it's Tylan Wallace, quite often on the other end of it. You talk about a big play guy. He's already got 6 TDs this season, averaging 23.6 per catch, only 20 catches on the season. He's just hard to keep track of. It seems like every time Oklahoma State graduates one, they bring in another one that is of the same set, the 6 foot, 185 guy that good luck tracking him down for the whole game. Right. No, I agree. It's amazing how many of these guys they come across. And, Mike Gundy hits home at that receiver position so often. It's just become a staple at Oklahoma State. The lift and cost conversations are something that we have every single season there in Stillwater. So, yeah, it's been pretty cool to watch that kid develop also. I haven't even covered my favorite guy on the offensive side. You mentioned Spencer Sanders eventually for a Heisman Trophy discussion a few years down the road. I'm about to go there on Chuba Hubbard. This kid, 6'1", 207, he's carried the ball 103 times. He's almost at 26 carries a game, but he has gotten the end zone 9 times in 4 games. That's incredible. And he is averaging 6.2 a carry. He is literally a workhorse for this offense, isn't he? Yeah, there's no question. He's a very talented running back. I still think there's parts of his game that can still be developed also. This is somebody who's got a unique skill set and ability to manage himself through the course of the game. He's patient behind the line of scrimmage once he hits the hole. There's an elite level burst, an NFL level burst out of him. You're talking about a guy that's 207 pounds, probably has room to get to about 210, 215. Like you said, that prototypical pro set back, but he's finding a way to survive and thrive actually in a more of a spread offense. It's been a lot of fun watching him develop. This is an NFL player, there's no question. Somebody who might even look better in an NFL uniform as far as his overall skill set than he does in college. And right now, he's one of the best running backs in the country. That's a great point. Some guys are just, more designed for the NFL, and he certainly is. Sam, now on the defensive side for Oklahoma State, I didn't like much of what I saw in that game against Texas. Your thoughts? Oh, defensively, it's a joke. I mean, to the point that I would consider probably looking to make a change mid-season. I can't imagine letting my football team take the field on a Saturday and just get humped for 4 quarters of football without making one adjustment. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. The nose guard should be disgruntled about what he was. He was basically served up the entire game to that Texas offensive line, and they did nothing to help protect those kids. It was crazy. That's the craziest thing I've seen in Division I football this year was the Oklahoma State defense and the failure to make an adjustment at all to make that a little bit easier for them. And the thing is, they still made plays. They got off the field 5 times. They had a turnover. Like, those kids are scrappy. They want to get in a fist fight. That scheme is a joke. Like, there's 10 nose guards in college football right now, today, that are capable of playing a true traditional nose guard, right? 10 nose guards today in college football, and those dudes are not going to Oklahoma State. I'll tell you that right now. They're going to Clemson. They're going to Bama. They're going to play big-time, blue blood college football because they're commodities in this game. You just don't find them anymore coming out of high school. So they're going to run that defense like they have the personnel to do it, and they just don't. It's absurd. It's laughable. You can't do that. It does strike me as very strange. And as much as I love Mike Gundy and I love what he does on the offensive side of the ball, my friend, he can't figure out defense. He can't find a coordinator that's going to do something that will complement his offense. It's crazy.
Yeah, and so here's the crazy thing about it. Like when you look at the changes that Kansas State has made defensively, look at the changes that Texas has made defensively, Iowa State's making defensively. These are all units that look like they have just kind of hit their stride at the right time in this conference. Because I said in July on my show that I thought the Big 12 was going to come back to center as far as running the football.
Yep.
Time of possession is going to mean something this season versus the last 5 years of this conference, because Texas and Oklahoma are at the top of this thing. It's a copycat league. People realize that controlling the line of scrimmage and running the football are going to win football games for you. And now you've got this injection of new coaches in this league that are doing the same. Championship coaches, championship coach there at Kansas State, championship coach at Kansas. These guys see the value in running the football. They understand what that means for your football team, when you can control the line of scrimmage. And I think that when you consider what Oklahoma State's doing defensively, it's almost like 3 years too late for the Cowboys. They need to do something different to help themselves defend what this new league is going to look like this season.
I'm an old school football guy. I'm guessing that you are as an offensive lineman. The Big 12, as you just said, was a lot of flash over substance in the past, and now substance is coming back into the league, and I love it. Oklahoma State is still running elements of the spread, but they're doing it with an incredible running game. I love that. For the Mike Leaches and for a while Cliff Kingsbury that just totally abandoned the running game in favor of throwing the ball, I never was a fan of it. And you had to strip down your defense to defend that, and still people are trying to defend that, and now they're at a disadvantage. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right. Yeah, it's crazy to see how the game is it just rotates and changes and evolves. And, it kind of always comes back to, overall physicality and being able to dominate the line of scrimmage. That's championship football. And it's been since 1920. That's been championship football. And it's the same way in 2020.
Mike Gundy is 15 years into his stint at Oklahoma State, has been a really solid coach. What is your assessment of Coach Gundy as we head into full bore into Big 12 play?
Yeah, I think he is the winningest coach in school history. I think without Mike Gundy and Les Miles and a very select few others, there wouldn't be this version of Cowboy football that we know today. He has the school Big 12 championship. He deserves a statue outside of the arena. I believe all these things about Mike Gundy. But I also believe that Mike Gundy is complacent. I think he is extremely comfortable in this position. And he even mentioned it this spring about being complacent and that he was going to change it. And I don't know that it's any different at this point. I think the cautiousness that he coaches with in big games lets you know that, kind of where he's at with his football program, where he's at in his career. That guy's got as good a job security as Nick Saban does in Oklahoma State. So I don't know if I'm overly, a fan at this point. I think some things probably need to be ramped up, picked up, especially on the recruiting side of things. Like there's no way that Oklahoma State with top 15, top 20 facilities should recruit in the 50s. That's an embarrassing number. It is. It's just there's three parts of this thing, right? You got to be the CEO. You got to be a play caller, have the X's and O background. And you got to recruit in college football if you plan on being anything. And Mike Gundy has failed to show us in the entire time he's been there that he can recruit a recruiting class that is up to the standards of what the university is at this point, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's crazy. Yeah. I love that stadium. I love the facilities down there. There's tradition. And it should be top 25 type recruiting classes with all that rolling at Oklahoma State. One final question for you before I let you go, Sam. If Mike Gundy is facing fourth down in the red zone or close to it this week, is he going to kick the field goal or continue to go for it?
Look, if he goes for it, great. I have no problem with him going for it. The problem is with that basic play that he ran.
Yeah.
That's the play. Okay, so you realize that your offensive line is just sitting there butts beat the entire game, and you're telling me that that's the play you come up with in 4th and 1. You're just going to let them run right at the defensive line that's been kicking their butts all day? Like, doesn't make any sense. Like, go for it. That's cool. Be aggressive. Like, you're on the road in DKR in front of 90,000 people against one of the most famous brands in college football. You're telling me that you don't want to be aggressive there? Yeah, of course you do. Yeah. But that play was a joke. It was a joke. So hopefully they just do something a little bit differently next time.
Well, we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. It's going to take place 6 p.m. in Stillwater Saturday night on ESPN Plus. If people can watch it, there are tickets available. Get into that stadium. It's a fun stadium. And I'm a big fan of the paddles.
No, absolutely. It's a cool deal.
I think the paddles are one of the coolest college football traditions that most of America doesn't know about and appreciate. So,
I agree.
And that was Sam Mays of The Franchise, wrapping up the first segment of the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company. Our analysts await. They are on the other side. I'm Tim Fitzgerald. We'll be right back.
The experts from GoPowercat.com will return with more on the Powercat Pregame Podcast, presented by Robbins Motor Company.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
My days working, taking care of my little ones can be a lot. I checked out care.com and it was so easy for me to find local, experienced, and background check sitters. Finding our babysitter was way more affordable than I thought. Care.com makes it super easy. Search for qualified candidates. You can view their profiles, read reviews and ratings, check their availability, send messages directly, get the help that you need. Care.com should be every person's go-to.
We now send it back to the Powercat Podcast. Joining you once again, it's Tim Fitzgerald and GoPowercat football analyst Marcus Watts.
Welcome back to the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company. Marcus Watts is standing by, but first this. The dedicated team of automotive professionals at Robbins, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat will match you with a vehicle that suits your lifestyle and budget. Robbins Motor Company, title sponsor of the Powercat Pregame Podcast. And let's kick off our analyst section of the Pregame Podcast with Mr. Watts. Hello, Marcus. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. How are you doing? How's Manhattan?
Manhattan is lovely, lovely on this Wednesday as we record this and get ready for Saturday's game in Stillwater. How important are off weeks for a player?
It depends. You know, sometimes you want to keep playing and stay in the groove.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it's nice to have, an off week where you can rest a little bit, watch a little football maybe. Spend some time with friends and family and not just be all about football the whole week.
That sounds like an Applebee's commercial. That's great. You know what? I hope K-State's rested, particularly that defensive side of the ball, because they're going to see a whole lot of Chuba Hubbard. This young man is carrying the ball about 26 times a game, if I do the math correctly there. They are working him in the ground, but he is a workhorse of a running back at 6'1", 207. He scored 9 TDs in the Pokes 4 games this season. He's pretty darn good.
Yeah, he's the real deal. I mean, he's something that K-State's going to have to focus on, and that's something I think going into the game is probably the number one key to this game is I think K-State should try to stop the run and focus on that more than they should focus on the passing game of Sanders and, with Tylan Wallace out there. Because a guy like Tylan Wallace, you're only going to contain for so long. There's no way to stop. He's going to have his moments. So, and K-State did a good job against Mississippi State. Now they didn't have to worry about the passing as much against Mississippi State. And so, but they shut down the running game, and they pretty much dominated that game the whole way through, except for some turnovers. in the game that led to some scoring drives for Mississippi State. But, yeah, K-State coming into this game I think is going to focus on the run. I think that's where it all starts, and that's what, Oklahoma State wants to do, obviously. If they're rushing their running back 30-some times a game, they want to get the run to set up the pass.
I agree. They don't just have to do that with Hubbard. They can go with their quarterback. The redshirt freshman Spencer Sanders has run it another 52 times this season, so he will carry it about 13 times a game. That's a pretty good 1-2 punch on the ground, considering that how many times they will throw the ball. But when it's a running game, it's one of those two guys almost every time. And I made the comparison earlier in the podcast to a young L. Roberson. He's just a redshirt freshman. He's going to make mistakes. He does some things that are kind of silly, but then you see glimpses and you go, oh my goodness, that's not fair. And we're going to find out a lot about the K-State defense and their ability to tackle and track a multifaceted run game in this one.
This has been K-State's Achilles heel over the years. So it's going to be interesting to see how Scotty Hazelton, Coach Klieman, and this staff handles the quarterback run game. It always gave Coach Snyder teams fits. It always gave Tom Hayes fits. I remember back to I kind of look at Sanders almost like a Zach Taylor from Nebraska, quarterback from Nebraska. He's very athletic, very shifty, very fast. And was a really good quarterback and could run that offense really well. And so it scares me, this game, at being the first time that this team has seen a dual threat offense that can beat you with the pass and the run.
Yep.
This year, it just has me a little on edge. Do I think this team can play well and win this game? Yes. But I think if it was at home, I'd have a better feeling about it than I do going down to Stillwater. I
agree with you. And, this isn't – we just talked about two guys that can kill you on the ground, but with that said, it's still a spread offense. They're going to spread you out with the intent to throw and run on you, but when they throw, they can really do damage. I mean, Tylan Wallace is averaging 23.6 yards per catch. I mean, that's not fair, man. That's unbelievable.
He is the best pure wide receiver in college football. Far on his hands, route running, the way he uses his body to position the defenders. He makes he'll make catches with three guys on him. And, Sanders will throw it up. So when those 50-50 balls, K-State has to either knock them down or they have to be able to get some picks in this game, which I think they can. But like I said, Tylan Wallace, I mean, he does everything right as a receiver. He's a young guy. What is he, a sophomore or junior?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, he might be a top 10 pick in the draft this year. That's how impressed I am with him as a receiver.
Well, the general theme of this podcast is Oklahoma State offense, really good. Oklahoma State defense, not so much. The Kansas State running game can be effective against these guys and can keep that offense, that high-powered offense, on the sideline. And stop me if I'm beginning to sound like I'm describing a Bill Snyder game plan for this type of game. But Chris Klieman said it. You got to lower the number of plays that can take place in a game, lower the number of snaps, lower the number of possessions. A team that hasn't so far this year run at ultra slow paces like Bill Snyder did might slow it down. They've kind of done some tempo on the K-State offensive side of the ball at times. I don't think we're going to see that in this game. They are going to want to snap that ball late in the play clock and really extend this game. Just slow it down, put it in mud, and run the ball. And the good news is Oklahoma State will let you run the ball. They're just not very stout up front.
Yeah, and when you're a team like K-State that doesn't run a spread offense, that can't score, I mean, they can, but they're not going to go down the field and score in 30 seconds, in 30 to a minute. They're not going to score quick. That's just not how the makeup is of the team. It's not how the makeup is of how Coach Klieman and Courtney Messingham want to run the offense. The number one thing you have to do is have long, sustained drives to keep the other offense off the field. The best defense for K-State, like I say all the time, I feel like I repeat myself every time they start getting Big 12 play, the best defense is their offense.
Yep.
The longer the offense can stay on the field, control the clock, control the line of scrimmage, and keep the Oklahoma State offense off the field, the better chance K-State will have a chance to win this game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and I feel like Skylar Thompson has matured so much as a quarterback. Mastering that kind of patient game plan is right in his wheelhouse right now. That, sure, nobody's going to pass up the big play, the deep throw, but he will know that, hey, let's just perpetuate this drive. Let's not take a big chance downfield. Let's just hit the tight end for 6 and maybe pick up a first down and hang on to the ball. I feel like Skylar's really growing into exactly what they need him to do in this game.
A game manager. Yeah. That's what they want him to be. They want him to be a game manager, not a hero.
No.
Manage the game.
Don't make mistakes.
Don't make mistakes. And make sure that they're in the right play every time.
What are your thoughts on Mike Gundy as a coach?
It's kind of hard because I'm not in the program and stuff, but from just looking from the outside, he's been a successful coach. Mm-hmm. He's a little different. Yeah. But I think he has a good rapport with his players, and his players play hard for him. I believe, obviously I know some of the coaches on the staff. I know Joe Bob Clements. I played for Joe Bob. He's a very fiery defensive coach, and there's nothing more than he would like to do than to beat his alma mater. And he's the D-line guy for this team. So, he's going to try to have his players ready to stop K-State's run. But one thing that's going to be different this year is he may not know exactly what K-State's going to do.
Yep.
That he always used to know in the past every check that they made, I bet Joe Bob knew what the check was.
He did.
Unless K-State changed the colors of their live calls or their dummy audibles. And so – he knew the blocking schemes. He knew the calls that the offensive lineman would make, so he could, give little hints and stuff to your players. But it's a little different this year. But, it's a lot of the same things of Coach Snyder. Let's pound it. Let's control the clock. Maybe a little sexier. But they want to do the same thing, and they've got to do it in this game. And special teams especially cannot have the mistakes they did against Mississippi State. Same mistakes, K-State loses by more than 2 touchdowns in this game.
Totally agree. They have to be much cleaner than they were in Starkville if they want to get out of Stillwater with a win. And, of course, you can hear Marcus Watts each week here on the Powercat Pregame Podcast, taking a look at the Wildcats and how they match up with their opponent.
And now it's time to break down the game between the Wildcats and Oklahoma State.
And now we bring in Brien Hanley, our post-game analyst, who's, also a pregame analyst. I guess you're just our analyst, Brien.
Just an analyst.
But certainly after this game on Saturday night, we will make the connection and throw up a post-game podcast. What hopefully we'll be covering the 4th victory of the season for Kansas State, but that will not be easy to accomplish as K-State travels into Stillwater for a night game while they're honoring T. Boone Pickens, and the paddles will be slapping and the crowd will be roaring, and the crowd is absolutely on top of you in Stillwater in a horribly designed stadium that they should be made to redo. But K-State has to find a way to get it done. This is a supreme test for K-State that might be the most hostile road environment they see in this conference.
Yeah, I think it absolutely will be, and Oklahoma State is good. It's a typical Oklahoma State team, Tim, where they can run it and they can throw it, but the difference is on offense is now they got a quarterback that can run it.
Yeah.
Where usually they don't have that, they don't have that dynamic. Well, now they do. And he can run it very, very well. And they're going to be, because I think they're coming off the game against Texas thinking that they could have won that game, maybe should have won that game in their mind. So it's going to be very tough. And like I said, they can run it and they can throw it. And, if there's 3 better receivers in the country I don't know. I don't know that they have three. That there's three better receivers in the country than Wallace. I just don't believe that that's the case. This is going to be a tough game.
Yeah, I love Spencer Sanders. I made the comparison over and over again. Our poor listeners are getting sick of it, but he reminds me of a young L. Roberson. And what I mean by that is he's not Michael Bishop. He's not that dynamic of a runner, but he's just kind of the freelance, come and get me. Oh, you didn't get me. I'm going to run around back here. I can take off upfield, but instead I'm going to sling the ball downfield to Wallace or one of his other receivers. Wallace isn't his lone guy. And as soon as you commit to stopping the run, he might throw it. And as soon as you think he's going to run it, he does run it, and you still can't stop him. It's just he's a maddening guy. And he adds another layer to the Gundy offense that they really haven't had, like you said. He frightens me because because it's unknown how Scotty Hazelton is going to handle the spread, let alone a mobile quarterback in the spread, because that is the supreme, ultimate challenge for a defensive coordinator.
Well, and it's going to be tough because, again, Oklahoma State goes super fast. Yeah. You know, they're going to go really, really fast. They don't run, a ton of different plays. I mean, they run obviously they do all the quarterback run games, but they run an inside zone, they run an outside zone, they run a counter and a power, and that's about all they run. But when you run it at light speed and you're up at the line of scrimmage and you just go over and over and over again, that's where it becomes difficult because you don't know what's coming. They run them from all formations, so you have no idea, tendencies and things of that nature. You don't have those kinds of things. So it's just we got to line up, and the defense we've done a really good job of tackling and being in the right fits, being in the positions that we need to be the first three games. This is going to be another one where we're just going to have to be where we're going to be and get in the right fits because there's going to be a lot of positions, a lot of times it's going to be one-on-one where guys are just going to have to make the tackle. And if we don't make the tackle, the guy's going to run for 40 yards. So that's where the difference with this week is versus maybe previous weeks. And we did a good job against Mississippi State. Did a great job because like you said, he is a NFL running back. He just is. Well, this week we're going to have to do the same thing, except they're going at lightning speed where Mississippi State didn't do that.
Yep. Now, the K-State player said they've been allocated 8 seconds between the end of the play and the start of the next play. And
that's right.
I don't care how good a shape you're in. After about play number 7 of that, your hands will be on your knees, and all of a sudden Chuba Hubbard runs right by you because you just can't get to where you need to be. It's a really fun offense. It is. I love these offenses and how they can do this to you, but the trade-off quite often for these offenses is, A, either they don't recruit as much talent on defense, they're putting all the talent on offense, or B, it just puts your own defense in an impossible situation of going out on the field way too often where they eventually break down because K-State's offense can do things to Oklahoma State's defense that might be very advantageous.
And that's where the difference is really going to be is us as an offense. Time of possession is going to be really, really key this game. Not that it isn't every game, but it really makes a difference in this type of game because having the ball and keeping their offense off the field, more importantly, resting our defense and then going and scoring touchdowns is what's going to make the difference in this game. Just doing what we do, hat on a hat, pushing guys around, controlling the ball. It's going to have to be a lot cleaner game, especially in special teams. To make the big difference in this game. But if guys are doing what they're supposed to do, and it's going to be a tough fight. Like I said, Oklahoma State, I mean, that place, there's 5 yards from the sidelines to the stands. I'm like, it's unheard of. It's crazy out there. Then again, it's fun for the opponent. It's fun, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I imagine on that sideline you find out some things about your mother you never knew.
Absolutely.
There's absolutely no room to maneuver. If you're like a member of the media, you really can't get from one end of the field to the other during the game because the sidelines, the benches are at the wall. It's crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy.
Literally.
When they did the redesign of that expansion of that stadium, they didn't carve back at least one side to make it more accessible because, honestly, it's dangerous for the players if they run out of bounds.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
Not that if I ran out of bounds, I would make it 5 yards. I would probably just sit down on the white stripe. Brien, if they win this game, how's that set them up for the rest of the season?
Sets them up pretty good. I mean, Oklahoma State is better than I think what people are giving them credit for. They lost. I know they lost to Texas, but they didn't play horrible. And like I said, I believe that with a mistake here or there, I think they believe that they should have won the game. And they were right in the game for the most part. And if it sets up K-State because of how, again, confidence on the road, tough opponent, Oklahoma State is better than Mississippi State. They just are. And if we can come out and win this game 1-0 in the conference, I mean, the confidence level of the guys is going to go through the roof. It'll be great. Just great for the guys.
Well, we will see how it all plays out in Stillwater on Saturday night. It can set the table up for really good things for this Wildcat program moving forward. It's another game, as I described on a different podcast this week, where I feel like K-State's playing with house money. As long as you don't lose big, shatter your confidence, get some injuries, you're going to be okay coming out of Stillwater with the loss. There's no moral victory in it, but it's also not disaster. You get to come home and start over with 8 more games in the conference, and 5 of them are at home, and you're in pretty good shape.
Exactly. Yeah, it's, no injury. You never want any injuries, but you want to play well.
Yeah.
Like you said, no moral victories, but it's one thing to lose and just get boat raced and get blown out. It's another thing to lose when you play well and it's close. Like you said, no moral victories, but at least you have something that you can build upon. Getting embarrassed or getting whipped, you can't really build upon that. A lot of times you don't even want to watch the film because it doesn't show you anything other than you got destroyed.
Right.
So I think the big thing is we need to go in there and just play well.
I just kind of feel like K-State is the more complete team, and that isn't diminishing Oklahoma State because I think Oklahoma State's a tremendous team. I just think that defense is going to end up being a liability for the Cowboys. Mistakes were a liability for the Cowboys at Texas. Poor coaching decisions were a liability.
Yes.
K-State made mistakes at Mississippi State. They didn't pay the ultimate price for it because, well, honestly, Mississippi State isn't Texas. But also, Coach Klieman put his team in a position to win. Coach Gundy, if he just lined up and kicked a few field goals, would at least forced overtime, and he just kept going for it, and it just didn't work out for him. I feel like Kansas State's the more complete team, even though this Oklahoma State offense is so special. They can do so much, and they're so complete, and that says a lot because I really like K-State's offense too.
Well, they are, but it's just like you said, the defense, leaves a lot to be desired. And kind of what I went back to at the very beginning, it's a typical Oklahoma State team. You got a ton of offense, but defense not so much there. And, in years past, at least they've had maybe a couple of pass rushers, that were going to be outstanding. Well, you don't really see that a whole lot from this team. K-State, we're going to have our way. We're going to be able to run and move the football as long as, like I said, as long as it's a clean game and we continue to do that, we're going to be able to move the ball, score some points. So I'm excited.
Well, I am too, and we will gather after the game to talk about the result down in Stillwater. The game's on ESPN Plus, but Brien Hanley is always ESPN Extra Plus to us. Thank you, partner. I'll talk to you on Saturday night. And now we go to Las Vegas and talk to our good friend Kelly Stewart. Kelly in Vegas on social media, and of course she starred in the Showtime series Action, and you can find her at wagertalk.com, and we're proud to be now in partnership with Wager Talk, if you want to call it that. We will occasionally have segments from them on the website, like we did with Mississippi State. Kelly,
I'm so excited
I know.
For that Oklahoma State video, especially us being ranked in the top 25 now, makes things so much more interesting.
It's going to be awfully fun, and I tell you what, we got a lot of good numbers, we'll just put that way, on the stuff from Wager Talk. It was really well received by our subscribers, so much appreciated.
Especially when I'm the only one that says K-State's the play. I played K-State, and both sharp guys go, "Oh, I don't know."
And you got it.
Let them have it on the message boards, guys. That's my favorite.
Yep.
Feel free to tweet them as well. I loved both Teddy and Drew. We have a couple different guys today on the video with me, but it's always great to get the Vegas perspective. And also, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it gives you as a fan a little bit more perspective. So if we don't go down to Stillwater and win the game, but we lose by a field goal, the perceived perception that we should have lost by a touchdown somewhat of a moral victory. Maybe I'm just jaded by Vegas.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. You're always looking at the numbers, and this number with K-State at Oklahoma State started at 7.5. You just told me you got it there, but it plummeted to 4.5. Now explain to our peeps out there what causes that type of sharp movement so quickly.
Tons and tons of money. So one of my favorite things about being able to be out here in Vegas and be able to get those early numbers, we have a sportsbook out here called Circa that just opened, and their newest claim to fame is to be the first ones in the world, literally, to put out college football lines. And so Sundays I'm doing a ton of stuff with NFL, and I'm super busy, but I have an alarm set in my phone for 2 o'clock because I know those numbers are going to drop, and there are certain numbers I'm looking for. And I'm going to bet them regardless if it ends up being a play or not, because those are numbers that are not going to be available later. So I can always come back. Now, if I wanted to come back and bet Oklahoma State -4.5, hope the game lands 6 or 7, I win both bets. So I think that's what we're seeing here with K-State. Big money came in early. When I saw that 7.5, I said, I got to get on this now. I didn't even call my dad to see if he wanted to join me. I knew the answer was yes. Went ahead and bet it, called him and said, hey, I've already got K-State plus 7.5. The thing to remember about those early lines is they don't take big bets on them. So what they're doing is they're putting out these early numbers to gauge the market. Where's the money going to come in on? I do think we will see more money coming on K-State. K-State being a ranked team, catching points on the road is always attractive. And honestly, K-State off a bye is a huge upside for this Wildcats team. I was holding an Oklahoma State ticket, and I'm still speechless. Gundy, what were you thinking as that play calling in the red zone on multiple occasions? I understand we joke a lot about kicking field goals, and we made fun of Pat Narduzzi. Why are you kicking a field goal there when you should be going for a touchdown? That was not the right move for Gundy. Take both field goals, tie up the game. He killed all the momentum that they possibly had. I thought that they should have came out of Austin with a win, but they didn't. Sanders still looks good. This kid is going to be tough to defend, but I think if anybody's defense can do it, it's ours.
Yeah, I agree. He's going to be a little bit different than what K-State's seen so far. What I like about him is they're running elements of the spread, but sprinkling Chuba Hubbard, a very good running back, along with Sanders, the freshman quarterback, who's incredibly athletic. So anytime you're running the spread, and by definition, you're spreading out the defense, and oh, by the way, the quarterback can run through those gaps we've created by formation, something K-State did quite a bit, you're in big trouble. It really is difficult to defend, and I'm intrigued to see how Scotty Hazelton approaches this defensively for K-State.
How about that special teams? That was our big weakness at Mississippi State. I'm really hoping K-State locks up a couple of those real just dumb errors, for lack of better words. I can't think of what else to call them. I got to watch part of the game. Obviously, Saturday mornings are hectic for me. I had a couple of K-State ladies sitting to the right of me, so every time they cheered, I knew to turn my head to the right where the K-State game was on TV. And there was a couple of jeers going, what was that? And hopefully K-State has worked through some things during the bye week and gets to come out with a win. I mean, I bet him on the money line. I did not against Mississippi State. I did in this scenario. But again, I'm a lot more sold on this Wildcats team than I was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are, and that shows up in the national rankings. Yeah, it was such a mixed bag in special teams at Mississippi State. Just a couple of boneheaded muffs on punts kept the Bulldogs in that game, and then they had the 100-yard kickoff return that
which was amazing.
Saved the day for K-State. So it's like, oh, I hate you, I love you. You know, that was my relationship with special teams 2 Saturdays ago when they're at Mississippi State. Can't do that on the road in the Big 12. Texas got away with it at home against Oklahoma State, a couple muff punts that, as you mentioned, Oklahoma State couldn't properly cash in. I think K-State's going to win this game outright, and I feel like maybe I'm being a homer here, but also I like this team a lot, and I don't know what they're going to do against the spread defensively. I think they're sound enough on that side of the ball to simply dominate Oklahoma State with the run game and take the Cowboys out of what they want to do.
And that's exactly what K-State has always done, whether it was Coach Snyder or Coach Klieman. They have the capability of controlling tempo. And if they can do that, I know that's more of a Manhattan, Kansas type of thing than going on the road, but if they can control the tempo of this game, they can throw Spencer Sanders out of his rhythm. They can throw that offense out of their rhythm. And as far as our side offensively, I've been very impressed with Skylar Thompson thus far, and I really, truly believe that he can control that offense and also control the tempo on that side of the ball as well.
Yep, it comes down to basic fundamentals for me. If you control those lines of scrimmage, which they did at Mississippi State, you can overcome a lot, which they did at Mississippi State. So our friend Kelly here says, bet the Cats. I don't know.
I think even at 4.5, Cats is a play, and I think it might even get dipped down a little bit lower. But, I mean, if you're feeling fearless, bet the money line. I did because basically I do a 3-team money line parlay every single week. And I was like, you know what? Should have put K-State in there a couple weeks ago. I didn't. And now I'm kicking myself. So I think they're going to get down to Stillwater. And, don't forget last year when Oklahoma State was ranked, came into Manhattan, Kansas, and we took care of business. This is a very good Oklahoma State team, but I don't think they're disciplined well enough to beat K-State. And that's something that K-State's always had the edge and the ability to do. And let's be honest, even prior to Chris Klieman, they've thrived in the underdog role for at least a decade. So this is going to be exciting. I'm excited to watch this game, and I think K-State keeps it close or wins the game outright.
Okay. Anything else you're looking at in the Big 12 or around college football that you really like?
Yeah, I'm looking at TCU. I know it sounds funny, but this Kansas team that's all of a sudden getting so much love because they were able to go in on Friday night and beat Boston College. Last week, they were able to get the cover against West Virginia. This is a TCU team that just got beat by SMU, and I know they're better than that. Last year, they lost at Kansas. If you remember, they fumbled on the Kansas 6-yard line with less than a minute left. It was absolutely atrocious. And then, of course, we all made fun of them. But these guys handed that game to SMU with too many turnovers. I really, truly believe they're going to be able to lock up those mistakes. I like Coach Patterson a lot. I think he's going to have this team ready, and they're going to just beat the hell out of KU.
Oh, that's interesting. What's that line at now? 16.5, somewhere in there?
Yeah, it's big. It's big, and it's big for a reason. Don't let it fool you. Don't look at it and say, oh, well, that's a lot of points because this team just lost. And you do have to throw the revenge factor in there. Now, don't buy in solely to the revenge factor, but don't think that this team hasn't had this game circled and isn't really looking to lay one on here against the Jayhawks. Now, the Jayhawks, again, are playing better ball, but I am not sold that Boston College wasn't just absolutely overlooking that team and got caught just with their pants down because this Kansas team still has faults. Yes, they have some talent, but I'm not there yet with KU thinking that they're going to go on the road in the Big 12 and really upset some people.
I'm not so sure TCU wasn't caught looking ahead to KU last week when they were playing SMU because they looked ill-prepared and not mentally focused one bit on the Mustangs. I think you're right. They might have been pretty excited to get their hands on KU after what happened last year in Lawrence.
No one can sit here and say, oh, yeah, we're focused the same each and every week. No. K-State's going to get up for bigger games like KU, which is why they always cover those astronomical numbers against KU in football. They're going to get up big for Texas games. And why? They lost in 2013 to Baylor because they had their eyes on the big national championship prize.
Yep.
And they went down to Waco and got beat. And that is what happens in college football each and every week. So, yeah, I'm looking at TCU here. And as far as anything else goes, Baylor, Iowa State looks really attractive to lay the points with Iowa State here, right? You're going, wait, Iowa State left a lot on the field versus Iowa, and they took it out last week against Louisiana Monroe. This Baylor team, I think, is a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. Remember, Matt Campbell lost a lot this last year. He had a lot of guys graduate, and now I like Matt Campbell, and I love him in an underdog situation, but people remember too much what they saw last year when the teams aren't the same. This is going to be a good one. I haven't went to the window yet, make a play on Baylor, but I think I might end up getting there before kick. Again, maybe just a little too overhyped here with the Cyclones. If we see something crazy happen or I get some good information, then I may end up on the Bears. Right now, just letting everybody kind of know more or less, I think it looks pretty trappy, so maybe stay away from the Cyclones.
I love that phrase, trappy. I like
trappy. I argue with people all the time. They say, oh, the bookmakers aren't trying to trap you. Oh, they aren't? How many people went and bet UCF last week at Pittsburgh when a lot of people had Pittsburgh tickets in their pocket?
Yep.
That looked at 12.5, got bet all the way down to 10. That's a lot of money to move that, and UCF money just kept pouring in. The bookmakers are not giving out free money, contrary to popular belief.
Very true. Her name is Kelly Stewart. She's a friend of the show, a friend of a family, and we appreciate her contributing each week.
Thank you, Tim.
Well, we've heard from the GoPowercat.com staff. We've heard from Sam Mays, who watches Oklahoma State on a regular basis as a former player and a radio host. And we've heard from the analysts that also observe Kansas State. It's K-State at Oklahoma State, 6 p.m. Saturday night in Stillwater. The game is on ESPN+. If you don't know how to get it, you better figure it out, because a whole lot of basketball is going to be on there for Kansas State this season also. Coming on Friday at GoPowercat.com, I will have my 5 keys to the game for the Wildcats if they want to win this game, and that is something I think they will do. Well, here's a sneak peek. My final score, K-State 38, Oklahoma State 34. K-State finds a way to put up enough points to leave Stillwater with a win, move to 4-0 on the season, and 1-0 in conference play as they come home to face the Baylor Bears and finish the season with 5 out of 8 in Manhattan. If they can win, it's huge, and I think they will do that. I'm Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowercat.com. This has been the Powercat Pregame Podcast, sponsored by Robbins Motor Company. And remember, all football season long, a podcast every day from GoPowercat.com.
You've been listening to the Powercat Pregame Podcast, presented by Robbins Motor Company. Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.
Fill me in. What happened?
30 years ago, the convent stole our children.
Ruth Wilson and Daryl McCormick star in the new Showtime original series, inspired by true events, The Woman in the Wall.
They're trying to bury this. All of it. The whole world looks at some people, but others just disappeared.
Girls were locked up and children were stolen. And you're trying to tell me no one knew anything about it?
I'm just trying to find my child!
The Woman in the Wall premieres January 19th on Paramount Plus, only with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.